Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives for families of critically ill patients in intensive care, so that you can make informed decisions, have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. This is another episode of Your Questions Answered, and in last week's episode I answered another question from one of our readers. And the question last week was, my father is in ICU with ARDS and the intensive care team is withholding information. Help! You can check out the answer to last week's question by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's episode of Your Questions Answered, I want to answer another question from one of our readers, and the question this week is, my daughter-in-law has been ventilated with tracheostomy for 4 months. How can we get her off the ventilator? Part 1. This question from Charlie formed part of an email counseling and consulting session with me. Charlie has also been interviewed on our podcast, and you can listen to Charlie's interview with me by clicking on the link below this video. So, Charlie shares his daughter-in-law's situation as follows. Charlie writes, Hi Patrick, my daughter-in-law suffered a femoral tunnel blowout throughout an ACL reconstruction, which is basically a ligament reconstruction in the knee, on December the 25th. After 6 weeks of conservative management, she went home, and then she suffered a brain aneurysm and hemorrhagic stroke on February the 8th. She then got admitted to intensive care. She stayed in the ICU for 4 weeks with all of the dire predictions and advice that, for her best interest, it would be better for her not to be resuscitated, because of her chances of going past a minimally conscious state were about 5%. At best, she would be able to just share with her thumb. Her father and my son, her husband, resisted this completely, and we said to pull out all the stops and not the plugs. On about March the 8th, she was transferred from intensive care to LTAC, which is long-term acute care, in another hospital, where I'm on the patient and family advisory council as a West Nile virus survivor with 14 months of treatment, most of it in intensive care. Against all predictions, my daughter-in-law is beginning to recover and rehabilitate. She has the same team that dealt with my encephalitis, poliomyelitis, neuropathy, flaccid, paralysis, etc. She's beginning to function, is cerebrally aware, is moving her hands and feet, engaging in exercise rehabilitation, and now here is using the iPad to type, etc. I have prepared a plan that I used in retrospect to overcome my own dire predictions for recovery to help my daughter-in-law. In terms of her lifestyle that the patient, family and friends are interested in and can address, we see that she needs to get a good night's sleep with 12 hours on the ventilator, so that she's rested and ready to fully participate in a rehabilitation during the day. The rate at which she is recovering in terms of a wild guess, and the longest we can expect for the healthcare providers is to tolerate this, is 90 days. Similar idea with me, that staying on that was the medically necessary and appropriate, kept me in the long-term acute care. It gave me time to get strong, staying on the event paid for insurance, and I walked out after being in a 6-month boot camp when the physiotherapist had said that I had plateaued and my trend line wasn't good. My daughter-in-law had a few health issues along the way, and she's a little bit obese and has been for much of her adult life, severely so. I know that grains, processed food and any added sugar are the cause of much bad health, in the sense that nutrition is medicine. The enteral feeding that she's on is full of calories from high fructose, corn syrup and soy and vegetable oils, and she needs to be on a whole food diet instead. I don't believe she's getting any insulin now, even though her sugars were high initially. We survived the ICU in the dire predictions, and now we are fighting the battle to keep her at the long-term acute care facility for longer, when they're trying to wean her from the ventilator for a good night's sleep and energy during the day. We are close to getting agreement on the Liquid Hope enteral nutrition, achieved approval from the physician in charge and the dietitian, and is waiting now for it to be approved by the chief medical officer. If you have any advice from a patient and family perspective in how to figure out how to guide patients and their families with a creative problem-solving leadership role, I would really appreciate it. Many thanks, from Charlie. So, here's my response. Hi Charlie, thank you for clarifying your daughter-in-law's situation, and also congratulations for standing your ground. It doesn't surprise me that your daughter-in-law is slowly but surely recovering. As I explain in my articles and videos about brain injuries, time is the best healer, and you are obviously a prime example for that by having defied the odds yourself. So well done. And yes, recoveries after brain injuries, hemorrhagic stroke, ruptured brain aneurysms and so forth take time, and in 9 times out of 10 families of critically ill patients in intensive care need to ignore the quote-unquote what's in the best interest for your loved one from the intensive care team's perspective. It's great to hear that your daughter-in-law has the same team looking after her that you had a great experience with. That's a very good starting point. I'm also very happy to hear that you and your family are not giving up, and that you've been so strong so far. Again, give yourself a pat on the back for being so courageous and strong. Following your own intuition and gut takes courage, as I know firsthand that the intensive care team, quote-unquote, always knows what's best, and they tend to put a lot of pressure on families in intensive care to follow their advice without families underrating what's really at stake. Your daughter-in-law probably couldn't ask for a better advocate than yourself, as you have defied the odds yourself. As far as practical steps go, in order to get your daughter-in-law off the ventilator, it does make sense to have her on the ventilator overnight so she can have a rest and be more energized throughout the day. As far as I understand, you are referring to the 90-day mark for ventilation in terms of insurance, as you may be concerned that the insurance may stop paying for the bills after your daughter-in-law exceeded a certain period in intensive care and long-term acute care. Therefore, it's crucial to take measured steps in order to get your daughter-in-law off the ventilator and then out of intensive care and the long-term acute care facility as soon as possible. And therefore, her care and treatment need to be optimized, and that's inclusive of her nutrition. There are other things of course as well, such as good nursing care, getting regular showers, washes, good physiotherapy, etc., etc. Good nursing care is extremely important and shouldn't be underestimated. Also, the mindset of the people involved, whether it's your family or the healthcare professionals, is critical and can make or break your daughter-in-law's care and recovery. You and your family have already taken the first steps by not giving up and by believing in your loved one's recovery. It sounds to me like you have faith in the LTAC team there, as you've been dealing with the same team in the past. The nutritional issues can be brought up by you and your family with simple explanations, just like you have in your email. But the biggest challenge is to get your daughter-in-law off the ventilator. Again, good nursing care is important and should not be underestimated. Getting natural daylight and also having visits outside are very important. The good news is that you have moved well beyond the phase where you are being managed by the intensive care team. You have been proactive all the way along, and you should continue to do so, especially since your daughter-in-law is making progress. And this is often a case of simply asking for what you want and not backing away from that. My experience shows that when families in intensive care or long-term acute care start doing this, that the dynamics change and the results and outcomes change as well. Keep at it and expect and accept only the best. I have written extensively about long-term ventilation with tracheostomy as well as brain injuries, and we have lots of ebooks, videos and audio recordings available for you if you are interested. But you should also keep in mind that in this day and age you should be looking at and considering intensive home care nursing services like intensive care at home. Intensive care at home services are a genuine alternative to a long-term stay in intensive care for long-term ventilated adults and children with tracheostomies. Intensive care at home can provide a similar service at home, and your daughter-in-law can very quickly improve her quality of life. You should check out intensive care at home. And here are also more resources that I recommend as well when dealing with ventilation, tracheostomy and head and brain injuries. Those ebooks, videos and audio recordings will give you insight in how you as a family can handle this challenge and get peace of mind, control, power and influence, as well as making informed decisions when you have a loved one on a ventilator with tracheostomies. So you should check out those ebooks, videos and audio recordings when you scroll down on this page if you're watching this video on our website. The links to the resources are there. If you require more in-depth personal consulting and counseling about your daughter-in-law's situation, we also offer continued support via Skype or over the phone here with one-on-one counseling and consulting with me. I really hope that helps, Charlie. Please let me know if you have any other questions. I wish you all the best. So, how can you become the best advocate for your critically ill loved one? Make informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. You get to that all-important feeling of making informed decisions, get peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free instant impact report now by entering your email below. In your free instant impact report, you learn quickly how to make informed decisions, get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free instant impact report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free instant impact report now by entering your email below. In your free instant impact report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions. Discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests. How to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. You get 5 mind-blowing tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to peace of mind, control, power and influence in your situation. You'll get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You'll get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's Your Questions Answered episode, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also check out our blog section for more tips and strategies, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Or you can call me. Find international phone numbers on our contacts tab. Also check out our ebook section where you get more ebooks, videos and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one consulting and counseling with me via Skype, over the phone or via email by clicking on the products tab. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.